back to the feature match area here at Grand Prix Oklahoma City. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Jacob Van Loonen, and we are kicking things off here in round number 12 with Patrick Tierney playing against, I got the wrong deck list here, Brian Heine. I know that Brian is on Storm because I watched him play last round. And you can see he's kicking things off with Serum Visions here, Jake. On the other side of the table, Patrick Tierney at 11-0, my friend.
What?
With a deck I haven't seen.
I've not seen it either. I've played Blue-Red Through the Breach quite a bit, actually, in the last month, but I've not seen it playing white.
But it's Jeskai Through the Breach.
I like it.
And I could read you a list of the cards that would make you think, oh, yeah, okay, the Jeskai deck, right? Mm-hmm. You know, Snapcaster, Bolt, Cryptic Command, Electrolyze, Lightning Helix, Mana Leak, Opt, Path to Exile, Remand, Yawn, right? We've seen all of these cards before. A couple of Spicers in there. Oh, look at this. Search for his Kanta. That's pretty cool. The Serum Visions you'd expect. But then at the top and bottom of the list are 4 Emrakul, Aeon's Torn, and 4 Through the Breach. So he can just gotcha, and the game can just end on the spot. So let's get things kicked off here. Storm player, Brian, he kicked things off with Serum Visions and then Goblin Electromancer. Patrick on the other side of the table had his own copy of Serum Visions, and it looks like he's got a Flooded Strand. Let's see what he finds.
I mean, here the Helixes actually are pretty rough for Patrick Tierney. With that Goblin Electromancer, he's got multiple Helixes in his hands, so he's not going to be able to use this island that was in his opening hand to be able to Helix this Electromancer right away. So he's going to need to have a Bolt or perhaps something like an Upkeep Path in order to get the Electromancer off the table. And he's going to want to do that because the Storm deck is very capable of going off on turn 3 if you let them untap with something like a Baral or a Goblin Electromancer in play.
Another Serum Visions.
So perhaps he does not have the Bolter Path yet, and he's going to look for it. Ooh, that did look like a Lightning Bolt to me.
That was a full art Lightning Bolt right off the top of the library. Just cold peeled it. Yep. Oh, baby.
Yeah, well, looking at his hand, I think he also has the Path, but the Lightning Bolt is obviously quite a bit better.
did he maybe set it up with the Serum Visions? No, he shuffled just now. That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a full art Bolt. Bzz. Down goes a Goblin Electromancer.
Now, in a matchup like this, I've actually played both sides of the Through the Breach or in the Storm and Jeskai matchup, which I imagine plays out pretty similarly to this. Your most important cards are Spell Snare, spot removal spells for the Goblin Electromancers, and yeah, those are your most important cards. Logic Knot also has, some applications. I think, you have to be able to counter a card like Gifts Ungiven. That card can win the game by itself.
You mean like you can attack with Gifts Ungiven until your opponent's dead, or?
No, you search your library for, any number of rituals and or, the combo pieces that you need, and the fact that, your end game is Passion and Flames allows you to essentially use all of the cards you search for with Gifts Ungiven. So in many ways, it feels like a draw 6,
Draw 6, wow.
And with Goblin Electromancer...
I'm interested in that.
With Goblin Electromancer, it just costs 3 mana, and then, you're searching up rituals and whatnot. It gets disgusting very fast. These new iterations of the Storm deck do not mess around. So before playing his third land, he's going to go ahead and Path to Exile this Goblin Electromancer.
Yeah, really making sure to try to keep that guy off the battlefield. And also, likely the only target that he'll see for these spot removal spells is Goblin Electromancer, perhaps Baral. But, the Storm deck's not heavy on creatures, generally speaking, though. In this case, this one, and I have to say, it is a weakness. He is playing 7 creatures. He's playing 3 Baral and 4 Electromancer in this deck. And, one of the strengths of the old school Storm decks is that you just don't get targets for Path to Exile, right?
Yeah.
Lightning bolts are forced to go upstairs where they're less efficient in many cases.
Absolutely, and I think that was one of the big advantages the old Storm deck had. The new Storm decks are much more powerful in a vacuum, however.
Yes, they're quicker.
Yes, they're more consistent by a lot.
Yeah, and if they run out the Electromancer, oftentimes the Storm player is okay with it getting it bolted because it means that you needed to have it,
And
like the
slowing
times
them
when
down.
you're just like, go, yeah, and then B, you needed to spend some mana and a card to do it. And in this case, sure, he loses Electromancer, but look at this. This is a fine sequence for Brian. He gets a land out of the deal thanks to Path, and he's making Patrick conform to his game plan. He's going to untap with 4 lands. Sure, no Electromancer, but it was like kind of like a free roll, we call it, right?
Yep.
If he gets untapped with the Electromancer, fantastic. He can Gifts Ungiven and maybe go off. If he doesn't, well, he's going to burn up a card from his opponent and even get a land out of the deal in this case.
Interesting card here that's in Brian's hand. He has a copy of Noxious Revival, I believe.
Who, Brian does?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He's playing a singleton.
Mm-hmm.
Just the one copy of Noxious Revival.
And,
And what does that do? That puts a card from his graveyard on top of his library?
yeah, it's a reclaim that you can just pay with Phyrexian mana. And one of the things that's really cool about that card, I mean, the old versions that played Pyromancer Ascension, you would essentially go off specifically with that and go infinite. But in his version, he can't do that, but he can, put key combo pieces that are dealt with back on top of his library, or while comboing, if he's going to play a cantrip, he can put something like a ritual back on top of his library while also growing his storm count. If you put a Manamorphose back on top of your library, it's essentially just, an extra ritual and an extra, 2 points to your storm count.
Yeah, storm count as well goes up, so you get that going for you as well. You see kind of an unorthodox play here for the Storm player. He's going for Gifts Ungiven, though. On his main phase, no help from his creatures, so just paying the full 4 mana, but making sure to do so while the Jeskai control player... And that, by the way, naming it Jeskai control is a little misleading, but while they're tapped out. It is Jeskai control. It is. But, the fact that it has Through the Breach and Emrakul, and it adds a completely different dynamic to your normal Jeskai control deck.
Yeah, I'm sure that Patrick picked up a lot of free wins because of that. If I'm playing against the lands that Patrick has in play, I will have absolutely no fear of tapping all of my mana when they're on 4 lands, and they're about to play their 5th land. Yeah, there's no question in my mind that I would walk into that,
Yeah. That's a great point. And it was one that Chat made when we first introduced the deck as well. That they were just speculating. I bet you he got a lot of people with that today.
Oh yeah.
Just what? You casting what? Through the Breach? Oh no. And they watched the game just fall apart on them. Now, a lot of lands in play for Brian at this point, and I believe that Brian passed the turn back. Is that what you saw, Jake?
Yeah, that is what I saw also.
So that's going to prompt a Lightning Helix. And again, if I'm in Brian's seat, this is all just par for the course, right? This is exactly what the Jeskai control / tempo deck is trying to do.
You're like, oh, he's just going to, V-click me on my end step one turn.
Or he's going to snap bolt me and start hitting me. The interesting part is that Patrick actually had the door open there to go for Through the Breach. He's got the mana. He's got Through the Breach. No, I'm recording him. So, womp. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see what it looks like when Brian goes, what?
Yeah. I mean, Brian would have an answer here, though, even though he doesn't have a Remand in hand. Well, he has a Noxious Revival in hand, and he has a Manamorphose in hand. Okay. So he can Noxious Revival his Remand back on the top of his library, and then he can Manamorphose, thus drawing the Remand, and then he could Remand the combo and, try to go off on the following turn.
Knowing that he's dead. Otherwise. Brian is down to 10. That is one of the cool things about the deck. Little synergies that you'll see. Burn spells in conjunction with the one shot from Emrakul. One way to think about it is Through the Breach is a 5 mana 15.
Yeah.
Because yes, the Annihilator trigger can leave a lasting legacy for you having resolved it, but oftentimes your opponent's dead because this deck can trivially get you down to 15 with Helix and Bolt and such.
Absolutely. I mean, 1 bolt and 1 attack from a Snapcaster Mage that flashes back something like an Opt, that's already 5 damage, and people do take damage from their lands in this format.
I like this here, too. Patrick is actually digging right now for his Emrakul because he just used a Remand to counter a Baral, but he actually has a Path to Exile in hand, and that's the only thing he's going to be able to target with it.
Yeah.
What are we going to see, a Snap? Oh, yeah. Snapcaster, and then that's going to prompt him to sacrifice the Scalding Tarn and then probably just go for one of those Lightning Helix or maybe just the Bolt.
Yeah, I like Opt, I think.
Oh, he's going to go for Opt, still digging for Emrakul. Okay. I kind of like getting aggro here.
Yeah, I think that it's in Patrick's best interest if because he's playing against a deck like Storm that uses Remand, to not just go for it right away when he draws the Emrakul, but instead pass the turn and then go for Through the Breach on Brian's end step. That way, if Brian does, throw away the Noxious Revival and make the play with the Remand, then he knows that the coast is clear, because obviously if Brian's going to jump through the hoop of Noxious Revivaling, then that means he doesn't have another copy of Remand.
But strategically speaking here, I mean, that all makes sense, but that's assuming that he finds an Emrakul. He doesn't have one.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah,
now, the Opt, of course, does give him a better chance to find it. It digs him, but it takes away from his potential clock here, as, Brian has done almost nothing. I mean, honestly, Patrick has, interacted a little bit, but gotten kind of lucky, right? Like, the Storm player was supposed to go off 3 or 4 turns ago and has just kind of not really done a whole lot.
Yeah, Patrick, he hasn't drawn that much relevant counter magic. Brian doesn't know that.
Bolt.
Brian has had the ability, by the way, to combo off. Like, he has the cards that he needs. He's simply looking for a window of opportunity where he feels that, going off would be in his best interest.
There's a Brawl. I suppose Patrick can just fire off a Path to Exile here because he doesn't have another target for it.
Yeah, I mean, the one danger in doing so is that, all of these rituals, they're instants. So Brian could fire all of those off in response to the path.
But he just
Patrick
can't do anything about it either way, though, right?
Yeah, if he doesn't have another piece of counter magic in his hand, then
he's gonna have to... I'm just saying, like, if Brian goes play a ritual, you can be like, Path, he's like, sure, ritual, it doesn't...
Yeah.
Like, the Patrick just doesn't get to... There's no window for him to say, haha.
Yeah.
He can kick things off or he can do it after, but Brian can just respond. So probably you might as well just do it. I mean, it is blocking the Snapcaster. He's got a Bolt in his hand. He needs like another Snapcaster or a Lightning Bolt, and he could just kill him.
Yeah.
A lot of cards in hand for Brian, too. You got to feel like he's getting close to crafting a hand to go off. He's had infinite time to set up here.
Yeah, I mean, again, like his hand, like he could go off right now even without that Baral if he so desired. The major issue for him is that he's probably trying to play around, some combination of spell snares, some combination of logic knots. Patrick has had all of his mana untapped on Brian's turn every turn thus far.
You're right. By the way, Brian did pick up Patrick's graveyard a few minutes ago, potentially to look for Snapcaster Mage targets, but also for Logic Knot. Just what can you do with it?
Yeah, so here, in response to this Pyretic Ritual, Patrick's going to go ahead and use that Path.
But like you said, Brian's like, sure, Path on the stack, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to start spinning it up. And again, there was really no window there for Patrick to effectively resolve the Path to Exile, but this is the turn. Brian's going off.
Yeah. He's going for it. So now Storm count at 4. Brian with 3 mana in pool and 3 more potential mana on the stack here.
Patrick doesn't really have any way to interact at this point, does he?
Not
we know he has
sure.
Through the Breach and Bolt. That leaves 1 extra card. I mean, is there any card in his deck? Cryptic Command? Even that doesn't really do enough here, right?
I don't think it quite does enough because... it seems like Brian will have enough mana to be able to
and he has that.
Cast another ritual after the Past in Flames.
Right.
And he also has the Noxious Revival, which is obviously quite good here. I'm surprised that oh no, that's his first Metamorphose, so he has not had the opportunity to... Okay, he's going to go ahead and...
Path happened.
Yeah. So currently with... 4 mana in pool. Once this Pyretic Ritual resolves, he will have 7 mana in pool, plus these 3 lands to work with. Yeah, so I believe right now that means 5 red and 2 blue in pool right now for Brian.
We have the Storm count at 5 there, I believe. That die.
I believe Storm count's at 7 after this Past in Flames because...
What do you think that die is for?
I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah, maybe they might not be remembering the Baral. And the other thing is that storm counts the spells both players have played.
yeah, but he just moved it from 5 to 9, but I think he meant to put it on 6.
Yeah.
It's the classic upside down 9.
Yeah.
They're counting now.
Yeah, plus the Baral, so it should be at 7, I believe. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're fighting the Baral.
The Baral was cast this turn?
Yeah. I believe there are...
I see
Am I
3
wrong?
tap mana for Brian.
I mean, there's no way that he
And
untapped with the Baral.
Well, one of the
Right,
mana,
like-
one of the mana is from the path as well. So he's only tapped 2 lands, which makes sense,
No,
right?
I think there are 2 off screen.
Oh, there's 2 off screen. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
It's, you know.
Oh, and here's Remand, by the way, from Tierney, targeting the Pass in Flames.
This goes up to 8 now.
It went
So-
from 6 to 8, but it was supposed to be at 7, so we're happy.
Oh, no, because it was a Snapcaster Remand. So,
Oh, gotcha.
okay. So,
Well, let's make it 9, 10.
yeah. Brian going to go ahead and Noxious Revival this Remand back to the top of his deck.
Oh, and then cast a Remand from hand and put another Remand in his hand.
Yes. And this Remand is the
That'd be
best kind of
pretty
Remand because it doesn't put the Remand back in Patrick's hand. It puts it in the exile zone because
That's right. 'Cause
it
snappy.
was on Snapcaster
Oh,
Mage.
yeah, that's the best kind of Remand. Hard counter. Exile your spell, I draw a card.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
It's really nice.
And here we go. That means that Pass in Flames has now resolved, and we are going to make a lot of mana here.
Yeah, and at this point, it seems like Brian's home free.
Oh, Patrick just needed to find that Emrakul at some point in the past 2 to 3 turns and couldn't do it.
And now just a Bolt and a Through the Breach in hand. Each of those spells that he just put out there generate an additional 2 mana. Is at a 14 Storm. Goes up 8 mana from what he had already had in pool. I don't know if he had anything in pool, but so he's got 8. Now he goes up, when he plays his Metamorphosis, it's going to go to 9, so it'll be 7 red and 2 blue.
I'll
But
tell you
at this
what,
point, it's just,
I was going to
it's
say, Jake,
math.
you're
Yeah,
the
sorry.
expert commentator here. So you tell me when I can stop counting and it doesn't matter anymore. Is that-
I
are we
think
at
we're at that point. I
Okay.
think we reached that point about
Cool.
like 25 seconds ago.
So what do you want to get for dinner tonight?
I don't know. My stomach's feeling a little bit better.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I'm in the market for,
What do you think?
what do they do well here?
They do
The
meat-
steak was good.
Meat, yes.
Yeah. We had a nice meat dinner on
We have-
Friday night. I'd
we're
be happy to
actually-
run that back.
I'm 2 for 2 on meat dinner since I've been here.
Okay.
Would consider it again.
Okay. I'm in. Let's do it.
Cattleman's?
Definitely.
You know what I really want is some of that coconut cream pie.
Yeah, I
Dear.
had the warm cinnamon roll.
Dear God.
The coconut cream pie was the better play, though. You're right.
Oh,
Their coffee was even good. The placement. If you guys come to Oklahoma City, I highly recommend Cattleman's.
they have a mural of cows with 2 men on horses wearing business suits that
Like
was installed
business
in
hats.
1978, and it's backlit. By the way, grape shots on the stack. So just storm count is 75,000. Oh, remand my grape shot with the storm and da 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 da. So good stuff there from Brian. And now that we know what we're getting for dinner, we can finish up this game. That's game 1 going to Brian Heine. And interesting stuff there because Patrick was really, look at him, he's looking through like, where are these Emrakuls at?
Yeah.
I mean, he really was just the one Emrakul away. I don't think Brian would have seen it coming either.
I don't think so either. I mean, the thing is that so Brian at that point would have been able to make that remand play, but it would not have ended up really mattering because Patrick could have done it end step and then untapped and done it again, or it would have put Brian in a situation where he had significantly fewer ways to go off, right? By having to use that Noxious Revival in that way, it would have stifled his ability to go off through the Snapcaster Remand in future turns. Storm's an interesting deck, though. I think, a lot of it is kind of just, playing a little bit of a solitaire game, but you need to be able to maneuver your way around the interaction that your opponent's going to present. And these are the types of matchups where your opponents have a lot of counter magic, where those types of skills are on display, the most visibly. I think that, when your opponent's playing a whole bunch of targeted discard, I think that's actually the best way to attack the Storm decks is with targeted discard and, a spattering of removal to deal with cards like Goblin Electromancer or Baral. And you want to follow those things up with a fast clock. So,
right.
A deck like Patrick's that would play, let's say Geist of St. Traft instead of playing the Through the Breach Emrakul combo, that deck might be better suited here because instead of him having to, go for the combo to win the game,
right?
They get it, get to that stage of the game.
Combo.
Yeah.
Versus turn 3 Geist.
Yeah, he could just be applying pressure while also protecting himself from getting comboed out.
Yeah.
So he could make his deck into, an iteration where it's, all interactive spells and then a fast clock. The danger of a card like Geist of St. Traft, of course, is that, you cast it and you just die. Because it's very easy for the Storm deck to, go off when you're in that time frame. Unless you're
so what is the upside to playing then the version that Patrick's brought here? I'm not going to play Geist of St. Traft. Like, I agree. In a Goldfish scenario, Geist is more compact. It's one card. It hits really hard and it's faster. But why would I want Emrakul, which is clearly a more powerful one-shot effect, but much more difficult to set up?
So I think
Two-card
that
combo, right?
Yeah, I think the 2-card combo is definitely it's better against Liliana's, for example, because they can't just play the Liliana when you play the Geist to make you sacrifice it. There are a lot of Lilianas here today. Of course, when you're playing a deck with cards like Vendilion Click, Snapcaster Mage, and Spell Queller, then Liliana's not very good against you at large. Mm-hmm. They usually leave it in post board, but it's not an all-star by any stretch of the imagination. But they definitely leave it in for fear of Geist. So I think that the 2-card combo also is very surprising out of Patrick's deck. I think that might be its biggest selling point. I don't think opponents are going to play around it at all. I think that people who have, counter magic, people who are playing cards like, Cryptic Command or Stubborn Denial, those people will put themselves in situations where they're dead to it, where they otherwise might not. The other thing that's good about Patrick's deck is that Patrick's deck is very resistant to removal spells. And when you're looking at what people are playing in Modern right now, most of these decks have somewhere in between 8 and 12 spot removal spells. And when you're playing against Patrick, those spot removal spells are going to be aimed at Snapcaster Mages. And Snapcaster Mage is already, netting some amount of advantage when you cast it. So even when, your opponent has the removal spell for the Snapcaster Mage, you're happy about that. Mm-hmm. They just used a card to deal with your card that put you up a card.
Right.
So,
a favorable transaction.
Exactly. So they're playing more removal spells than you are creatures. So you're inherently they have dead cards in their deck as a result. And in addition to that, the creatures that the removal spells can hit are not positive EV targets for them.
I love how you put that.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking my language.
Patrick with a pretty slow hand here from the looks of it. It looks like Brian has 2 copies of Pieces of the Puzzle in his opening hand. And he doesn't even have 3 lands, so it seems like he would have to ritual Manamorphose into Pieces of the Puzzle.
That makes me nervous just thinking about it.
It's Barf City, so he's going to mulligan. So something to note about Brian mulliganing here, Storm mulligans horribly.
Ooh.
It is one of the worst mulliganing decks.
Okay, so explain
in
why.
The format. So, the whole goal of your deck is to cast a whole bunch of spells. And, the more cards you have in your hand, your deck has incredible redundancy. And it's just about having enough cards to do the thing that you do. So, every time you mulligan, it's usually one more turn that it's going to take you to assemble the tools that you need to go off through whatever it is that your opponent is stopping you from doing. Mm-hmm. And, Storm is one of those decks where your win percentage when you're not mulliganing may be significantly higher than with a lot of other decks, but when you go down to 6, your win percentage is drastically lower than another competitive deck in Modern on 6 cards. And when you go down to 5, it gets nearly impossible to win games. So very important to know that Brian on the mulligan here, he is on the draw, which helps a little bit, but big disadvantage for him. What do you think about these unstable lands?
I love them.
They're pretty, right? In real life?
They're gorgeous.
They're real pretty.
Yeah, we got a chance to debut them at the World Magic Cup. They let the players in the top 8 play them in their decks, and I got to hold them in my hand, and I was like, oh my God, these are sweet.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I love them.
You love them too. All right. Well,
I've also been lucky with the opening islands.
Now,
so
our coverage coworker, Ben Seck, he's a little more in the grumpy old man stage. Of his Magic career.
He's worried about them like wandering onto his lawn.
Right, right, making too much
if they have something on their
noise
shoe?
past 9:30 p.m. You know,
Yeah.
and in his reasoning,
Standing in the crosswalk when he's on his way to the early bird special kind of thing.
Right, and he doesn't like the borderless nature of them because he feels like they look weird next to other Magic cards that have borders, and that they can kind of blend in with each other a little bit. All ideas, of course, which I just outright reject.
So you're Patrick, in a situation again where he really needs to be able to get this Baral off of the table before allowing Brian to untap with it. Patrick, when we look at his sideboard here, because he's trying to put his opponents in situations where removal is bad, he doesn't have cards like Izzet Staticaster in the board. He doesn't have, Pia Kira and Nalar. So he gets to play a much more high-impact sideboard plan where, his cards are a little less, versatile. He can't really change what his deck does quite as much as some of the other, Jeskai decks might be able to. But instead, he gets to play a lot of these 1 or 2 ofs, cards like, Settle the Wreckage or Supreme Verdict that are extremely high impact. The reason I brought up the Izzet Staticaster is that's usually a card that you would bring in against Storm post-boarded games because they will bring in Empty the Warrens.
Yeah. You got to get those Cheon tokens off of the battlefield.
So, Brian doing some puzzles. So he has multiple copies of Empty the Warrens in hands. Not a card you want to draw 2 of.
No, it tends to culminate with a one-shot for those, and then oftentimes you will have done so, and then you look at your hand and you've got like a land in that or just that, and of course it doesn't look so good there.
One of the things that's good about Empty the Warrens is that you don't need to full combo. With a card like Grape Shot, you really need to go off, and it is a cleaner cut. You get to just kill them outright, but you also need to get to that critical storm count where you're able to Grape Shot or double Grape Shot them to death. Whereas Empty the Warrens, you could have a storm count of 4 or 5, and that'll be plenty to end the game in a turn or 2.
Mm-hmm. And surprisingly difficult to interact with a horde of goblins. Like you said, a few good answers in the format like Staticaster, and there's a few sweepers and such, but it
also forces people to sideboard cards that
they might not want. Yeah,
they might not want.
Yeah, I mean, how awkward is it, right? If you're looking down at it, is it Staticaster and your opponent's like Grape Shot? And you're just like, well, what am I doing with my life, right?
Yeah, or you bring in an engineered explosives or something.
Yeah,
and then,
but at the same time, if you don't bring it in, and they're like Empty the Warrens, you just lose. Where if you do bring it in and they empty the Warrens, you probably win. What is that? A 5-for-1? They're ritual, Manamorphose, Empty the Warrens, and you're 1 card to wipe it all out.
Yeah.
And you have an insurance policy against a second copy of, But that's what the Storm deck does to you.
Yeah. And that's, one of the hallmarks of a great combo strategy, that they can, dictate the way the opponent is going to sideboard, dictate the way the opponent is going to set up their deck for coming games. Looks like Brian's going off here. Patrick with 4 lands untapped. Brian did just ritual.
Is he doing it?
He is. And
Baral helping out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he might not be going off this turn. He might just be casting gifts.
Ooh, there is a dispel, though, on gifts. Ouch.
And here, I think Brian might just end up... Oh, he didn't. I thought he might remand his own gifts back to his
Just
hand.
to keep it in his hand so he could do it later?
I think he still has 3 mana in pool, though, so maybe his plan is to just
to go
land
Warrens here?
Go for... Or he may have 2 mana in pool. Go for land and empty the Warrens.
It is so hard.
He had one. He had 1 mana. Yep. It's not good enough. It's red.
Do you like commentating the Storm deck, Jake?
I think so. It's weird for me because I'm like, in some ways, kind of like the inventor of Pyromancer and Ascension Storm. So like
this is your baby?
Yeah, I do like this
that.
deck. Yeah, like nobody had ever played Pyromancer or Ascension Storm before, and I made it for Building on a Budget article many years ago, and I played it in a PDQ to write a Building on a Budget column about it, and I didn't even play rare lands in my deck, and it was like a 300-something person PDQ, and I lost in the finals.
Oh man!
And I punted the finals, by the way.
Oh no!
I was so upset with myself. Oh. But it would have been the best column of all time. But these decks look dramatically different, so it's not. I did not invent, what Storm looks like.
You're saying you have a vested interest in this.
Yeah, like these are decks that I feel a connection to on some level.
Good. Now I have somebody to blame.
Sorry.
I like the concept of a Storm deck. I really think that it's cool, and I'm glad that it exists in the format because I think that there's a certain type of player who really enjoys playing this type of deck. But from the commentary booth, I really dislike how non-visual it is. It's just floating mana and things that are just hard to convey.
Yeah, you have to be like counting numbers.
Yeah, stuff but it's all just abstractions that are hard to, and like when they start going off, they almost always do. Mm-hmm. Right? It actually is quite rare for them to fizzle. I would assume if you would have just told me, okay, here's the deck, here's how it works, that they would fizzle way more often than they actually do. And so then I just end up being like, yeah, well, there he goes. And, we talk about steak, talk about what's for dinner tonight. But I know, again, like I respect the fact that there's a solid group of people who really love this type of deck and this type of experience, the combo experience for Magic.
Yeah, and they're, my personality, I think, changes from, year to year. And there have been times in my life where I've loved playing blue-red, like pure combo decks. And right now I don't particularly. Right now, I'm much more into casting Thoughtseize or, playing with... I'll still combo people these days with, Pestermites and Kiki-Jikis or Through the Breaches, but I've just been into more interactive combo decks as of late. I do understand what you're saying. I think that, Brian is in a much rougher spot this game than he was in the last game when you're using cards like Rituals and then you're passing the turn without having, done something incredibly impressive like an Empty the Warrens and or Lethal Grape Shot. Then you're usually in a pretty bad spot. But we have to remember Brian did mulligan in this game.
When do I get to see an Emrakul?
No, I think
is that too much to ask, Patrick?
We're about to see a little bit of fireworks here because Brian Heine has Giga Drowse in hand.
Oh, really?
It's an interesting card. It's a card from Guild Pact, and it costs 1 blue, and it says tap target permanent. It's an instant, but it has a replicate for 1 blue. And if you look at Brian's mana base, every single land in his deck produces blue mana. So,
fireworks through the breach on this deck.
This is the end step through the breach.
Going to have to get remanded. Yeah, this is the end step that you described earlier. Mm-hmm. And what do you think Brian's thinking right now? He's looking at it like, wait, what?
This guy did not foresee this as an issue. So he's going to get a loot trigger off this Baral also, which is
going to loot away another Baral, I think.
Kind of sweet.
Ooh. No, I was wrong. He's going to loot away a Grape Shot and keep a second copy of Baral in hand, actually. Interesting. Now, if Patrick can protect this, there's another remand in hand for Brian, but if Patrick can defend it, he can get this through the breach down. So hold your breath, Brian, because he's got to go for the remand here. But if Patrick has his own remand or something, no, he doesn't. It's just going to go back to his hand.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, if Patrick had a land there, I believe he would have been able to Snapcaster Dispel.
Oh, so close.
However, he drew a detention sphere for the turn.
Right now, so this gets really interesting because Brian has just drawn 2 extra cards and looted twice since he passed the turn. Mm-hmm. His hand has got to be awesome at this point, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, he also has that Giga Drought, so he could hypothetically put Patrick in a situation where he cannot interact. All of his lands are tapped. So then Brian just has to figure out, like, if the getting's good. And I think he does have the tools he needs to make a disgusting amount of goblins, but he does not have the tools he needs to win outright. And the problem with making a disgusting amount of goblins in this type of situation is that Patrick has Detention Sphere now.
Yes.
And that was
what
he sideboarded in as his answer to the Empty the Warrens
now,
plan.
There's another little sub-story going here, Jake. Look at Brian's life total. He's at 16. He is 1 away from getting one-shotted with Emrakul.
Yeah, that is true.
Giga draws you down. And this is just an insurance policy here from Brian. I mean, Brian has to figure that Patrick has no interaction at this point.
Yeah, he certainly would have protected.
But at the same time, well, Giga draws adds to your storm count and whatever. Right?
And it's worth noting that if Patrick did have Remand specifically as his interaction, that he probably would not have used it, because if he had had Remand, then there's no point in remanding a Remand because Brian could just Remand back.
Good point.
Again, so.
Truth. At any rate, the barn door is open, and the herd will be coming through shortly here with the Empty the Warrens for some very large amount.
So I believe this is just 6 tokens.
But he's got another.
Yeah,
right,
which makes 8. So he's got a total of 14.
Yes.
So now he's got 15 power on the table, and Patrick's at 13 life.
And Patrick with the sick sideboard tech with that Detention Sphere.
Yeah, and that Detention Sphere right now just wins the game, because Brian's going to be left with just a Baral in his hand.
Why did he keep that Baral? It's still bothering me, but at any rate.
Yeah, well, the thing is, also, though, Past in Flames is kind of a disgusting card in a lot of ways, because Past in Flames could allow Brian to win even through this, potentially.
What nonsense is this? Why is he tapping 4?
He was thinking Supreme Verdict, maybe.
What is going on here?
I don't know. I mean, if he has a bolt along with the Through the Breach, he might just kill.
Yeah, he'd need a land too, but I mean, if he's snapping here. Oh man, this is so brutal. He's gonna snap Serum Visions just for a little extra value here, and then he's gonna go, "Hey, look what I found!
Look what we got, boys."
That is brutal. Brian's like, "Okay, all right, I've got my goblins. I might be able to survive this. This could all work out."
Yeah, we could be home free.
Lightning Bolt Baral.
That's okay. I kept one.
And then, boom, he drops the hammer on the Detention Sphere to take out all the goblins. Pass the turn back to Brian. And like you said, that was effectively game, though. And at this point, like, Brian just has a Baral in his hand and just drew a Ritual, but he's about to get Emrakul here.
Yeah.
Woohoo! We get to see something cool.
Yeah, and he also has the Bolt, so game's going to end this turn. Yeah, let's go. See what happens.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah.
No, there you go. Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, on the battlefield. He's going to attack with both. Oh. No. Oh, dude. If I'm Brian, I'm like, no, that Snapcaster is 100% attacking.
Yeah, obviously.
He announced the Annihilator trigger after attack. Anyway, whatever.
It's over anyway. It doesn't matter.
Certainly academic. Brian's going to go down to 1. And he's going to be left with just 1 card in hand, 1 land, and 1 creature on the battlefield. That's the graveyard being shuffled back in. Land go from Brian. And like I said, this is effectively academic at this point.
Yeah, Patrick does have that bolt in hand.
Yeah, he can just fire it off.
I believe.
Finish him.
Oh, nice. Thank
he's
you.
going for the full style points. Emrakul number 2, Patrick Tierney. Just showing off a little here.
Yeah.
Why bolt your opponent when they're at 1 when you can 15 them with
I appreciate it. Keeping things fun for
man,
us.
That is great.
We wanted to see it. We
I
got
have
to see it
no
twice.
evidence of this at all, but the narrative I've built in my mind is that Patrick just hates Storm. He's just like, you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play my detention sphere last. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to through the breach you twice just because I can. Oh, that was great. So that's game 2. And now these players actually, though, they've been playing at a reasonable but not particularly quick pace, and both of the games ended up going pretty long on top of that. So they're at 9 minutes left here, and they're still sideboarding. Like, this could be a problem. They're really both going to have to look at each other and say, hey, it is in our best interest to finish this match one way or the other. We gotta book it here.
Absolutely. And I think that something that's important, though, about the time issue is that both players are playing decks where the last turn of the game could end up taking quite a bit of time, or the second to last turn of the game could end up taking quite a bit of time. So if they do end up going to extra turns, that could be, it may not be overwhelmingly relevant, because those turns that take so long are the turns where they're, going through the motions and figuring out like the way to resolve that through the breach, or, the way they're going to, chain together the correct set of rituals.
Jake, I'm sad.
What's so upsetting?
Chat has upset me.
What's wrong?
They said that he didn't have the bolt in his hand anymore.
Oh, because he bolted the Baral.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, I'm not. They are. But I'm just sad because I liked my narrative.
Yeah, it was a good narrative.
I have to
it was
let
a
the
better
narrative
narrative. Yeah.
Patrick was just simply doing what he needed to do. Although he did have a Snapcaster, so
yeah.
I don't know. I think the bolt got shuffled away by Emrakul anyway. So.
Oh, yeah. That's also true. Okay.
I got to let go. It's time to let go of the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So though it's very interesting though, because had Brian had one extra card in his hand, you go back and you look at that mulligan, that turn where he cast the ritual and ended up not going off, that turn would have been a lethal turn because he would have had an extra ritual in hand. So, Brian in that game, one card off from winning.
There was that one weird turn. All right, looks like we're ready, though. They did manage sideboard pretty quickly here, just under 7 minutes to go as we kick things off here in our third game.
Yeah, so Brian, casting Serum Visions here, needs to find a land. So, let's see, not either of those two. I'm not sure if it's what he drew for his turn. It is not.
Uh-oh. A sketchy keep here for Brian?
I wouldn't describe it as sketchy. I mean, he's playing Storm. He had, Serum Visions in hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that he even has another blue cantrip. His deck is playing tons of blue cantrips. So I don't know if I would necessarily call a keep like this sketchy, but sometimes they don't get there. So Patrick, just going to Serum Visions here. Set up.
Little snap bat off the top of the library there for Patrick Tierney.
Yeah, one on top, one on bottom. And Patrick Tierney, managed to win a game, has not drawn a single copy of Spell Snare yet, which, in my opinion, is one of the best cards in the matchup.
How many does he have? Let me look.
Spell Snare, I mean. Is that what I said?
You did.
Okay.
He doesn't have any.
Oh, he's not playing Spell Snare.
Yeah, well, he certainly didn't draw them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even have any in his board at all, Jake.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm surprised
That's
to see
surprising,
that.
yeah. He actually is playing a very interesting list, even just of just a Jeskai control list.
I really like this list. I am curious to see if this is the type of list that can go on, meaning that it was just a one tournament hit where you get to surprise a bunch of people, but if they know it's coming, less good, or is it actually just good to run, an over-the-top finisher rather than the more efficient threats that you normally see out of the deck?
And Path is really good right now. Lightning Helix is a good card. You're giving up Blood Moon by doing this in terms of the Through the Breach combo, but
that's a big give up.
That is
There's some
a pretty
decks
big give
where
up.
you just get to win the game. 3 mana win the game.
Yeah, there are a number of decks where if you're on the draw, it's a 3 mana win the game.
Yeah.
It's not a given against Tron that it's a win the game because you could lose a die roll and they could just have a card in play.
Meanwhile, Tierney's trying to make sure that the board state stays under control, relatively speaking. Use the Lightning Helix skill Brawl a turn ago, while Brian is sort of getting things going. But Tierney, again, I do believe that this is a matchup where the Emrakul plan looks so much worse. Like, imagine this turn if he had played Geist of St. Traft.
Yeah.
Right? Like, now all of a sudden he's just going off. By the way, this is pieces of the puzzle here for Brian.
So he already has a Gifts Ungiven in his hand, but the nice part about taking a card like Gifts Ungiven here, which I assumed he would do, and it looks like he is doing that, is that it lets you pick fights on your opponent's end step. And that's when you want to pick the fights, because if you pick the fights on at any other time, then they can get you with the Through the Breach. Whereas on their end step specifically, it sets you up for just untapping your lands and doing it again the next turn. And you keep forcing them to tap the mana so that you're going to have your mana untapped on your turn. And here, I like this a lot. Patrick Tierney recognizes his role in the matchup, that he's kind of under the gun, and he casts a Snapcaster Mage for no value and simply starts attacking Brian. And I think that play is right significantly more often than people make it.
Okay. He has a clock now. Not a particularly fast one, but he's got one. No play there from Tierney on turn 4. Finds a Lightning Bolt off the top of the library. I believe I do see his copy of Engineered Explosives in hand, giving him the ability to deal, once again, you talked about earlier, with an Empty the Warrens.
Yeah. But
this is a big play here. How about Gifts Ungiven on your end step?
Yeah, and Patrick's going to be forced to fight over this.
Yeah.
And
whoa, Mana Leak. He just has the hard counter for it here. That looks pretty good.
That looks real good. But the major problem here is that I think shields are down right now. I don't know if Brian knows that shields are down.
They don't look down.
They don't look down at all.
4 or 5 cards in hand with blue available.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think they might actually just be down.
And a Dispel being left on top of Brian's library. And this is interesting because Brian now, he can pick another fight with the gifts on Patrick's end step.
Ooh. Was that Emrakul off the top of the library?
I believe it was. Yeah. Did he already have the Through the Breach?
No, I don't think he does, Jake.
Okay.
We will find out shortly, likely, but I don't believe that he's got one in his hand. I think he's got like Bolt, Snapcaster, Explosives, Emrakul, and something.
So Brian not going to pick the fight with the end step gifts here, instead going to wait until the following turn where he's able to draw the Dispel off the top of his library, which he set up with the Serum Visions. And on the following turn, he'll be able to go Gifts Dispel to protect the gifts. And once he's able to do that, he should be able to go off on the following turn. And one interaction that's really cool about his deck, the fact that he's playing the 1 copy of Noxious Revival, makes Gifts Ungiven significantly more powerful, because if he does want specifically Baral and or Goblin Electromancer, he can search for the 2 of those with Gifts Ungiven and search for Noxious Revival, and then he can guarantee that he's going to have one of those 2 tools in the following turn.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's Noxious Revival in general, I think when I first saw that card, I envisioned it as a card to be played alongside Gifts Ungiven to guarantee that you could get a specific type of card.
Cards, yeah. Is that Giga Drowse here from Brian?
It is.
Okay, so ding dong, here we go. This is the big turn here for Brian. With 12 seconds left on the clock, we're going to be an extra turn shortly, but he only needs one, theoretically,
need one.
Perhaps two, if it is an empty the warrants for a huge amount, which at this point is exactly what Patrick's hoping for, right? Mm-hmm. Like he passes the turn and Brian goes card, thing, 28 goblins. Go, and Patrick goes, cool, engineer explosives, blow them up, your move. I don't know how Patrick would win that game necessarily, although he obviously has outs in the form of, Emrakul at instant speed. But
yeah, Brian, even though he's tapping out Patrick here, and he's got a decent number of cards in his hand, it's not clear that he's going to be able to win this game on the following turn.
Not at all. And Tierney's just emptying his hand here. He's like, all right, Giga Drowse is on the stack. I'm just going to use up my mana. So Lightning Bolt you, Snapcaster, Flashback Lightning Helix, cast that too, go.
Yeah.
And he's got him down to 4. He just says, well, I'm going to just be mana efficient if I don't get to use my mana anyway. Brian has left the planes on tap, but that's innocuous.
And something that's really nice about this play from Patrick, too, is that if Brian does go off without an Electromancer and or Baral just to make a whole bunch of goblin tokens, then because of that engineered explosives in Patrick's hand, Patrick can simply play the engineered explosives for 0, crack it, and then attack for 4, which happens to be Brian's life total. So,
hello.
The math was right, and
hello,
it looks
synergy.
Like that aggressive Snapcaster Mage play, Snapcaster for no value, has worked out pretty well for him.
It absolutely has. It's changed the clock significantly. Now, the interesting thing here for me, though, is if Brian goes off with Empty the Warrens, that's great for Patrick. He has the answer in his hand, and he even has lethal lined up. But what if Brian goes off? What if he just has enough to, dig through his library, find a Gifts Ungiven, find the Grape Shot, and just Grape Shots him, right? Then he can just win the game.
Yeah.
And he will still have some number of Grape Shots in post-board. Is that correct?
Yeah, I imagine he will.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine he's going to have, probably 2.
Okay, yeah, he plays 3 in his main. It's interesting because we know he has an Empty the Warrens in his hand, so that's clearly the most likely line of play that he has here. But it actually won't get the job done. It just won't. So this is going to be really interesting to see if Brian, this turn with his Storm deck, this is the turn that he's going off. They're in turn 1 of extra turns. If he can craft a game plan that actually wins the game now. Like, actually finishes the game now.
Yeah, and one of the cards that he has pulled to the front is Grape Shot here. So, he may be thinking about that. Although I don't see a Past in Flames pulled to the front, which is very surprising to me.
Is there a chance he has one in his hand? Or?
Yeah, I might be missing something.
Or is that just one right behind it? No, that's a ritual, right?
Yeah, it looks like a...
Pyretic ritual?
Okay. 2 rituals, a Metamorphosis, and a Grape Shot.
So does this leave the opportunity for Tierney to put a Grape Shot in the graveyard? And have it actually just be there since there's no Past in Flames?
I think so.
He didn't. He gave Brian the Grape Shot.
Yeah, I mean, Brian does not, though.
Can he have enough to go off for 19?
Depends how this Metamorphose works out.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Well, because this is his last card draw, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. What did you hit?
Ooh, I think he mistapped his mana.
Explain.
So he left, instead of leaving with Spiral of Canal untapped, he left Island untapped. So it just gives him less options. And being able to do that is very important in this deck, being able to know what you need when you need it. I mean, now he's got infinity red mana anyway, so it doesn't matter. But
right. All right, ritual. He's going for the Empty the Warrens. Now, can he go for just kill the Snapcaster mages and do some damage to you? With a Grape Shot here as well? He didn't.
He did not.
So he may have run out of mana. I don't know what his mana count was because it's completely obfuscated. But he didn't.
Yeah,
and now Patrick Tierney gets to win.
Yeah, Patrick Tierney wins.
Wow.
Patrick Tierney plays explosives for 0.
I'm not gonna lie. His sideboard game plan really paid off here because Brian got to go off with empty both games, and that does it. Patrick Tierney with his Jeskai Emrakul through the breach deck is 12-0.
Yeah, in that game, he even had the combo in hand and just didn't need to use it. And what's interesting there, though, is even had Brian, because he drew the second piece of the combo that turn, so even if Brian had done the grape shot, he could have just put an Emrakul in the play and killed him. His life total was low enough.
That was great stuff. All right, that's going to do it for our
he could not have. Dispel. Sorry.
Okay. for our live coverage here of round 12, we are going to be back with more Time Walk and such after these messages.